Jesse, are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's do it.
Well, let's just kind of recap since we've got a little bit different audience here than when we started the show. Gabe Rubio is the biggest news of the day. Rubio, defensive tackle for Notre Dame, defensive lineman, not enrolled in school for the spring. So, what what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that this is, first of all, it's an unfortunate situation because we've seen a lot of depth be successful along the defensive line for Notre Dame, having a lot of rotations in and out. And Gabe Rubio is a solid backup to Howard Cross. And if Howard Cross would have decided to go to the NFL and not come back for another season, I think Notre Dame would be in a tremendous world of hurt right now. But luckily, Howard Cross came back. I think Anye and Heinisch are two quality guys behind him that have big opportunities to step up. And I really think that someone like Heinisch is going to seize this opportunity just because it runs in the family, like his brother. I felt like Kurt always found a way to get himself on the field, and he wasn't like a star, but it continued into the NFL. He's on, he was on the Texans roster. He
Yeah.
didn't even get drafted. He was, a practice squad guy that made his way up to the active roster. And I feel like Donovan's kind of the same way at Notre Dame. I think you're going to see a common trend. I wouldn't be surprised if Donovan Heinisch starts to get quality reps at the second string level.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is literally the biggest thing, the size that Rubio has, because Gabe Rubio is a guy who is 6'5" and 330 pounds. Like he is even much bigger than Howard Cross, who is still, right around, he's a couple biscuits shy of being 280 pounds even. And that's the thing that Notre Dame's defensive line is lacking right now, is that size slash strength. And that's what Gabe Rubio brought him when he was healthy last year. Missed 4 games due to the knee injury that he had in the Navy game. But when he was out there, he was a really good, run stopping, run plugging type guy who, as you said, made the job of the linebackers much easier with his presence. So for the spring, what this means is opportunity for other guys like, the younger guys like Devin Houston and Armel Mukum, and even the true incoming freshman Sean Sevillano maybe gets a chance to show himself a little bit more this spring than he would have, if Gabe Rubio would have been here. Jason Anye, who we saw really stand out last spring. So you hope that this is limited to this spring because he is not enrolled at Notre Dame for the spring. He is back home in St. Louis dealing with personal issues. So hopefully this is it. I think, as Vince said at the start of the show, it's much better that it's now as opposed to at the end of July when you're getting ready for training camp. Hopefully it doesn't go that far because it could be, a big issue. But again, flipping this, there is another transfer portal window that will open at the end of spring. So as they assess all these guys, and depending on what happens with Rubio, they would potentially have another opportunity to go back to the portal and pull somebody out of the portal if they decide they need to. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. And I'm sure that there will be, as much conversation or, communication as Gabe Rubio wants. I'm sure that Marcus Freeman and his staff will be in there, staying in contact with him, hoping that things work out for the long haul.
Yeah, just a couple more things. I feel like, if Gabe Rubio does decide to potentially not be a part of the program next season, I think that the transfer portal is a very viable option and something that Notre Dame fans should feel comfortable about, because Marcus Freeman has did a terrific job in the transfer portal the last 2 seasons,
Yeah.
specifically this offseason. So I don't doubt that they would find anyone, but you don't want to replace someone like Rubio. You want your own guys. And as an ex-player, I would say that you don't ever root for guys to leave the team, but when you're a player amongst your position group decides to leave, there is an inkling of excitement because that means you get more opportunities and you're going to see more time. And so for people like Anye, Heinisch, and some of those other guys you mentioned, like, you have to feel some sort of excitement because now you're just one step closer, right? There's one less thing kind of in your way of getting more potential playing time. And it's just like on the flip side, anytime that you we announced that we were getting some transfers, the last thing you wanted was to hear that a transfer was
You don't
coming to
want
your
one in your
position.
position, right?
Right. And so again, you're not rooting for anyone to be done, but when someone leaves in your position group, it's not, again, it's an opportunity for some of these guys to step up now.
Fill in the blank. Offensive lineman Andrew Kristofic effectively retiring from football rather than play his 6th season of eligibility is blank.
Is a business decision, because what in terms of business for Andrew Kristofic, what makes more sense? The potential of being a guy who plays, probably a special teams only guy on extra point or punt or something like that, be a quality backup to some of these younger guys that are up and coming on the depth chart, or say, listen, I've done more than most people can say in their life. I got to play college football. I got to play at one of the top programs in the country. I got to earn 2 degrees, and now I get to go start my life with those degrees that I've earned. So, what made sense for business decisions for Kristofic was getting his job started, starting making money, start his real world. And if he would have came back, he just would have been delaying that an extra year. And so you thank someone for their service and say, we appreciate your time, but both sides are ready to move on. And I think it's a great business decision.
Yeah, and that's, again, I liken it to what Braden Lindsey did last year. Lindsey could have come back for another year, but he decided that his football career was done. He retired and moved on and went into the business world himself. And that's effectively what Andrew Kristofic is doing. And like we talked about earlier, when you look at where he was in terms of all the young talent that was, that's there with those interior line positions between Pat Coogan at left guard, and you got Sam Pendleton coming, and then you got Rocco Spindler and Billy Schrouth over on the right side, and Ashton Craig, kind of leapfrogged him there in the middle at center when Craig got his opportunity after Kristofic unfortunately got hurt when he came in that Clemson game. So it's just, it becomes a numbers game, and they've got a lot of really good young talent. Hopefully it works out for him. But as you said, complete business decision. And you obviously wish him well, Andrew Kristofic, as he moves on. And I mean, he's got an undergrad from Notre Dame. He's got a master's degree from Notre Dame. He got to be part of a college football playoff team and a really, winning, successful culture at Notre Dame in his time. So hopefully things work out for him as he moves on. Again, he's going into financial planning. So if you're in the market for a financial planner, you might just find Andrew Kristofic on his LinkedIn page and reach out to him and get him started as he gets started down that road. So Notre Dame has at least one active player on each of the 4 remaining NFL playoff teams, 2 in the AFC, 2 in the NFC, 2 teams. Drew Tranquill with the Chiefs, Ronnie Stanley and Kyle Hamilton with the Ravens, Romeo Okwara and Brock Wright with the Lions, Aaron Banks with the 49ers. How significant is it that Notre Dame is guaranteed to have a Super Bowl champion this year?
I don't think it's too significant. I think it's good that Notre Dame can say that they're going to have, alumni on a Super Bowl winning team. I think that's great, but I don't think it's super significant in the grand scheme of thing or the overall, picture, because listen, the USCs, the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the Georgias, like all those teams have someone out there that is probably a Super Bowl champion just about every season, right? And so
Sure.
if you want to be in that upper echelon or that upper, tier of college football programs that's cranking out All-Americans, draft picks, NFL players, etc., I just think you have a known reputation, and it's kind of almost expected at this point that if you looked at, the roster of whoever wins the NFL championship, you would probably find at least one Alabama player, one Ohio State player, one Georgia player, and hopefully you could say Notre Dame as well. And so again, I think it's a great thing. I just don't think it's super significant in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, it'll at least provide a good opportunity for Notre Dame's social media
Right.
department.
And that's what it's like.
You
And that
know?
person can probably come back to campus at some point wearing their Super Bowl ring. Maybe they're
Right.
around some recruits and say, hey,
Yeah.
this is the path that I took. It involved Notre Dame and I became a Super Bowl champion.
They'll show up at some point, like in the next couple of years at a home game, and just like happens all the, they'll show up and they'll do the ladies and gentlemen, here's,
Right. Super Bowl, blah, blah,
yeah,
blah,
Super Bowl
champion.
champion, and he'll wave and he'll show his ring and they'll put him up on the big screen and and all that different kind of stuff, but like it was funny because like this year you've got all these actual active players on the roster on each of them. Like last year, remember they like Notre Dame's they were working overtime to work the Ian Book angle, even though he was on the practice, he's the number 3 quarterback on the practice squad, but it was like Ian Book, playing for a Super Bowl championship and all that kind of stuff. He didn't even get to dress because he's the number 3 quarterback. By the way, did you know they changed that rule this year so that like the emergency number 3 quarterback can be dressed, and out there, so like
I didn't know that.
Book would have got to dress this year. I wonder if he'll be dressing because I saw he
Someone
got
picked him
signed
up.
to the Chiefs. Yeah, he got signed to the Chiefs a week ago. So like Book is technically part of the Chiefs as well. So, again, he's not part of the active roster, but I believe he's on the practice squad anyway right now. But yeah, I mean, it's been a couple years. Ben Skoranek, remember? He won with the
Right.
Rams
The
a couple years
Rams.
ago. Like, I don't know how many people actually remember that, but like Tranquil was with the Chargers last year. So, he wasn't with the Chiefs this year. But yeah, so it'll be, it's pretty cool. Like you said, it's what you aspire to. Hopefully you keep cranking out more NFL guys and you'll have more guys on more rosters. And it'll, it's just like every year you'd have somebody.
Let me ask you, does it change your rooting interests at all? Like, are you still rooting for the Chiefs, or you're like, oh, I'm going to root for this team because this Notre Dame player was there and I liked that player. He was one of my more favorite players.
No, I don't think it changes. Like if there was only, like that would be tough. Like say it's the 49ers. No
Yeah, I'm
matter
not
what,
rooting
I
for the
won't be
49ers
pulling
no
for the
matter what.
49ers. Yes, that's right. I'll definitely be pulling more for, for the Lions and Brock Wright even though Brock Wright, I guess he got hurt. Did you see that? Like,
Yeah, I did see that.
so they already signed Zach Ertz to their practice squad, and there's a chance that he'll take Wright's, spot on the roster this week. And I still haven't heard how serious it is, but they said he was in a sling after the game the other day, unfortunately. But no, it wouldn't, like I'm more for the Chiefs than I'm for the Ravens. I think, like I like Lamar Jackson, but I've just never really warmed to the Ravens that much. Obviously, like Colin Hamilton and Ronnie Stanley too, for that matter. But like doesn't make me like in this specific instance, especially, it doesn't make me pull for any one team more than the other, I guess.
I think it does for me. I'm a big Kyle Hamilton fan, and I wouldn't mind seeing the Ravens win it all. Like I'm not saying I have anything against the Chiefs, but the Chiefs have been there. The Ravens haven't been in a while. I like Lamar Jackson. I like the defense that the Ravens play. I like that a lot of people doubted Kyle Hamilton, and now he's an all-pro and probably one of the best, safeties overall in the league. And
Yeah.
so I'm rooting for
Didn't take
someone
long either.
like that. I looked up Brock Wright. He was diagnosed officially with a broken forearm.
Yeah, a couple people, Father David and Sloppy Joe, both kind of slid that in there as well. That sucks, especially.
Yeah, because he was out the last couple of weeks with a hip injury as well. So he just
Yeah.
came back and then he broke his forearm.
Well, and Laporta, is the Lions' big guy. You can make a case that Laporta was the best tight end in the NFL this year. So Wright was getting completely overshadowed, early on, even when he was playing. We had a guy in our fantasy league who was trying to trade us Laporta for every, imaginable elite wide receiver all year long. And
he was also the same guy that I think had Andrews, Laporta, and Kincaid on his roster. So he fell into some tight end luxury, but couldn't really move pieces around.
Yeah, I will pull for the Ravens if it ends up being Ravens 49ers, but What if we get Chiefs and Lions? We opened up the season on a Thursday with Chiefs and Lions. What if we finished the season with Chiefs
That
and
would be
Lions?
crazy. I forgot that was the first game of the season and could
Yeah.
potentially be the last game of the season. And the Lions snuck that game out. And I think that was Mahomes' ugliest or second ugliest game, depending on where you put that Broncos game in the season. I think overall did not play super well.
I am planning on being able to pull for the Lions for the next couple games. That's my plan, to be able to pull for the Lions in the NFC Championship game.
See,
And
I want to root for the Lions so bad, and I think I mean I do because I can't. I'm not going to root for the 49ers, but it hurts my soul because I have a really obnoxious friend that's a Lions fan, and Michigan already won the championship. So
I didn't know you and DK were that close.
yeah, I don't think DK is a Michigan fan.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay, so Jim Harbaugh has made the rounds interviewing for NFL teams. And as of right now, he is reportedly getting very close to becoming the Chargers' new head coach. It's getting down to some details in terms of what the staff will look like, what the, like the general manager and all that different kind of stuff. So, but he's not gone yet. My question, though, scale of 1 to 10, how much do you think college football will miss Harbaugh if he does, in fact, end up back in the NFL?
This is again another tricky question because you look at one side of it and you look at the appreciation that you have for Jim Harbaugh of X's and O's, the coaching standpoint, his team's playing a certain way, his ability to come to a program, turn things around, and that sort of situation. But then on the flip side of it, you can't help but get caught up in all of the kind of, Jim Harbaugh activity, the scandalous, the allegations, that sort of stuff. And it just reminds me so much of Pete Carroll after, he got his job, he got it done at USC. He just rode off, back to the NFL. And after, all the stuff kind of went down with the Reggie Bush and, other players. And so that's kind of the similarity that I get when I think of Jim Harbaugh. Like I think they will miss him in terms of being a really good coach and really good mind. Like he's a good offensive quarterback, runs a good team, disciplined, tough, those sort of things. But again, at the same time, there's just that side of Jim Harbaugh that's dishonest. And it's like,
right,
at times it's 10% dishonest. Other times it's like 50% dishonest. And so I don't think you're going to miss him for those reasons. The lack of consistency in judging Jim Harbaugh's character, not his coaching ability, but his character, his coaching character. And I think that goes a long way at the end of the day. He's a slimy guy. He doesn't have good character. And it makes it, I think it makes it harder to appreciate him, because if he were just a normal, average, kind of maybe below the radar type guy, none of this would come up. And so I think college football might be slightly relieved of having to not deal or listen to the drama around Harbaugh anymore, but still lose again that the great mind of Harbaugh at the same time.
Okay, you made a lot of great points, and like as you made them, I'm kind of sliding my number down because I had my number a little bit higher. Because I mean, there's definitely, especially like with Nick Saban leaving, there's already a void to fill. Like to me, it doesn't. You need Notre Dame to be good because of the polarization. You need the Yankees. You need the Dallas Cowboys. Like those kind of high profile programs to be good. Even Michigan, even though it sucks, like from a Notre Dame
Right.
perspective. But you also need those polarizing personalities, I think. And Saban fits that bill. Urban Meyer fit that bill. To an extent, Ryan Day fits that bill, even though, like
he lets his emotions get the best of him.
Yeah,
too,
and there's like Harbaugh takes it to a different level. Deion Sanders definitely fits that bill. Lane Kiffin fits that. Like those kind of guys. There's, they're going to polarize, but they've also got, at the very least, even though especially like if you're a Notre Dame fan or a Michigan State fan or an Ohio State fan, those fan bases specifically, like you don't like Jim Harbaugh no matter what. Like we're not going to miss the fact that like he hid depth charts or wouldn't release depth charts and, rosters and all that different kind of stuff, just like
He was
little things.
constantly finding ways to find loopholes.
Yes, just like little stupid things that shouldn't be an issue.
It's
that
honestly like lawyer
issues.
behavior, analyzing words and trying to get different interpretations and meanings out of it.
Right. Played semantics with everything and tried
Right.
to play, like little word games with everything in the media. But like as someone who sits in the seat that I sit in, that's good for business.
Gives you something to talk about.
Yes, that's exactly right. So like I completely agree. Like all these stupid little things and the cheating, that he'll never admit. I mean, look, he was negotiating with Michigan on his contract there based on what, if I stay, you've got to guarantee me that it's not going to be one person who fires me, but it's going to be a committee of 3 who have to agree to fire, like those kind of things.
Right.
Like, like all those little things. So we're not going to miss the BS, so I put it at a 4 just because as at the very least, as someone who comes on here and talks about college football every day, Jim Harbaugh gave us plenty of different things to talk about. I mean, he left with a national championship as well. Again, like no one's gonna, like no one besides Michigan is gonna miss that. Don't let the door hit you on the way. Like, but he gave us things like climbing the tree and camping outside of recruits, all that different stuff. So there's a like I said, there's a void to fill and very few people remaining right now in college football who can fill that. So just from that aspect, it'll be missed. But there's a lot of other BS that I don't think anyone is going to miss. So I think I put my number around a 3 or a 4. Fill in the blank. NFL teams, speaking of coaching jobs, NFL teams tweeting announcements about interviewing head coaching candidates is blank.
Is bizarre, and I appreciate this question because I've been on Twitter less recently, but I have been seeing like the Falcons, for example, being like, we have conducted our interviews with such and such, and I'm like, have they always done this? Like, why is this a new thing, and how has it gained popularity? Like, I mean, I guess I appreciate it because it makes it official, right? Like, there's no more he said, she said, or rumors. If it's an official statement,
you're not just relying on reports. It's coming straight from the horse's mouth.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I do appreciate that aspect of it, but I just still find it kind of weird that we've entered the stage that they now have to do something like that at the end of the day. It's just, maybe it's just because of the newness to it. But when I first saw it, I was just like, is this real? Like, are they actually, making this statement? So yeah, I just kind of found it interesting, but I appreciate the clarification that it gives.
John says it's ridiculous. And I mean, like think about it. Two of the vacancies that were tweeting the most, the Falcons and the Chargers, Jim Harbaugh was interviewing for both of them. And you've got, they're, like they're tweeting about, hey, we just interviewed Bill Belichick. We just interviewed Jim Harbaugh, so again, I like the transparency because you're not just kind of hiding behind murky waters and you're trying to be secret. Like if you're the fan base of one of those 2 teams, I would think you've got to like the fact that they're letting people know. Like if you're Jim Harbaugh, I guess it gives you a bargaining chip with Michigan at the very least, and like with other teams that you're interviewing with, because it's public knowledge. It's out there. People know that you're interviewing. I do find it very curious because, like you said, this is a very recent phenomena. It's only within the last couple of years this kind of stuff has started. So it's again, I find it very interesting that NFL teams are actually willing to put it out there because typically they've tried to play cloak and dagger and not wanted to kind of let people know exactly who's coming in and out of the doors.
Right.
So according to Pro Football Talk, the Cowboys and Eagles each expressed interest in Bill Belichick to be their head coach, but Belichick did not reciprocate because he didn't want to deal with big market media. Now, Pro Football Talk, of course, is the Mike Florio site. So what do you think of this little new nugget that came out today about this?
In terms of the Cowboys, I find it to be quite speculative because I don't think the Cowboys ever shopped Bill Belichick. I think they were set on letting this whole situation expire.
You don't think they,
Essentially,
even kicked the tire and, like floated it, through his
I
agent
don't
or
think so.
somebody
And
just
I
to
and I
say,
think
hey,
and I think it's kind of funny too that his reasoning was he wanted to avoid a big market, when you can argue that Boston is one of the biggest sports media markets in the country, just because you have relevance and success out of all of the sports teams there recently. Like the Bruins have been good, the Celtics have been good, the Patriots have been good. Like Boston is a very large sports market. And so if
well, and
he's
that's just
saying
just
that,
to answer what Michael Hahn is saying. He's saying Boston is a big media market, and that part of this report was, Belichick had dealt with that for more than 20
right.
years, and
And
he
so
was
that was
tired of it. He wanted to kind of get off the grid. He wanted to be in coaching, but he didn't want to have to deal, with that kind of media scene
Yeah, I
again.
don't think he wanted the microscope of why he's making every decision. I think he just wants to crawl into a cave, coach football, and have no one ask him why he's doing the things that he's doing. And so that makes sense because he's done it for such a long time in a big market. It would make sense that he'd want to go somewhere with a smaller market that doesn't have quite as big as expectations. And so everything that he does, he's seen to be kind of like this godlike figure because he's just fixing everything, and they're now getting better, and now we're on the cusp of this and
Right.
that. Again, I think he just wants to crawl into a cave, have no one ask him any questions, and he just coach football. Like that's the ideal situation to him. I just don't believe that the Eagles and Cowboys ultimately reached out to him. I think they made their decisions a while ago that they were going to stick with whatever that they had.
Yeah, I do find it, I think it's a little naive. I think probably if that's Belichick's, thing. Obviously, like Michael's New York, Boston, Dallas, Philly, those are some of the toughest media markets, I think, when it comes to, their sports teams and stuff like that. But I'll just, like, I've just kind of been in this daze for the last week and a half, since the whole thing ended to the Packers. And it's like this Derma days, I think. It's been going on for like what, 27, 28 years now, whatever it is. And it's like I flipped on a Seinfeld episode the other day, and it's the one where, Jerry and George are obviously sitting, in the diner almost all the time. But Jerry goes, "What are we doing with our lives? What kind of lives are these? We're pathetic. Why can't we be normal?" And that's like, it's how I feel supporting a Jerry Jones backed team, like, or Jerry Jones owned team. What are we doing? We're not men. We're pathetic. What are we doing here? So maybe it's time I just move on from this. I'm thinking about throwing the names of teams into a hat and just like drawing a random name out of the hat. I'll pick a new team that doesn't have anything to do with Jerry Jones. What do you think?
I think you'd have to remove a couple of teams out of there, like the 49ers,
Well,
the
yeah,
Raiders.
within reason. And like,
All of
like
the NFC East is ineligible.
yeah, definitely no NFC East. Maybe just go like Cleveland Browns. Like the Browns have never won anything. Just jump on that.
Well, you could always you have a place to stay if there's any games that you'd like to come see as a
It's
part of
true.
your new fandom.
It's true. If the Titans were to adopt the old, like the Oilers full color scheme and uniform, like without the oil derricks on the side, but went everything. Oh my God, Michael Parks. I might have to ban you from the show for even suggesting Steelers. That is like the original no. Yeah, but like the Oilers, not the Oilers, the Titans now, like if they adopted the old Oilers
Let
uniform.
me ask you something though, because this whole conversation is all about not only have the Cowboys not won a Super Bowl since what was it, 96? They've even been to an NFC Championship since 96. Okay, we know that, right? But let
Right.
me phrase this. Let
We
me put
definitely
something.
we definitely know that.
let me put something else into perspective for you. The Cowboys have won a Super Bowl more recently than the 49ers. Yet the 49ers since 95 have been to 7 NFC championships but haven't won a Super Bowl.
And they've been to a couple Super
And they've
Bowls
been to
as
a couple of
well.
Super Bowls. So what
Yeah.
is ultimately more excruciating? The fact that you don't have a Super Bowl in closer proximity than your probably biggest rivals of the Cowboys and Steelers. Yet you've been to 7 of them right on the cusp. You've been to 2 Super Bowls, but you haven't quite got the you're right on the edge consistently. So like with the Cowboys, they're not close to the edge. They break our hearts early. But with the 49ers, they get deeper. They get right to the edge, but ultimately fall short. Like that's why I get so mad about the argument of, well, we've been to NFC championships and we've been to Super Bowls. Well, okay, that's cool, but you're just the first or second loser at the end of the day. It ultimately comes down to,
But
did you
wouldn't
win
you
the
at
thing
least,
or not? Did you win it or
it's,
not?
we were kind of touching on this yesterday with how the college, going to a 12-team playoff is going to change what, how you sort of think about a season. At some point, there's going to be a team, like let's say it's Penn State, for example, because Penn State in a 12-team format would have been the most consistent
Every year they're there.
team to be in, right? They'd be in, but would they actually go anywhere?
Right. That's
So like
kind of what I'm getting
at
at. Is
some
like,
point, like even if they had been getting in but not going anywhere, their fans would get sick of it at some point. It's going to completely skew your expectations and how you feel. Like it's not going to be good enough at some point. And that's exactly how it is. But like I get what you're saying. I would still rather get to a Super Bowl because at least you've accomplished something by getting to the Super Bowl.
right.
Like in the Cowboys instance, they haven't even got to the freaking NFC Championship game, let alone a Super Bowl. They choke before they even get there, and that's
Yeah.
it's. I don't want to go down that road yet. I mean, the Bills are the new one as well, but again,
I mean, everyone talks about
the Bills and Josh Allen will never get the criticism that Dallas.
That's what I was just getting ready to say. The Cowboys and Bills are pretty much identical, and Dak and Josh Allen are pretty much identical. But you have Dan Orlovsky telling you why Josh Allen should still be MVP and why Dak belongs in a dumpster. But they're pretty much identical franchises the last 10, 20 years.
Well, and the other side of this is I'm really curious to see how this Chiefs-Ravens AFC Championship game goes, because the Ravens have not fared well in the playoffs.
Right.
With
And
Lamar,
it looks that
with the
way to
Lamar
start the
Jackson
game.
iteration, right? And it's everything, but with that offense and with that quarterback, it is very specific. You just nailed it. Like you've got to get off to a good start, or else if you're trying to play catch up as the Ravens, that's when they have bowed out of the playoffs really early.
Well, and I think
Lamar
a lot of
Jackson running the
people
show.
want to give praise to Lamar Jackson this season, and rightfully so. He's a tremendous
He's been
quarterback.
great.
But look at their best games. They have a historical defense in terms of, like, when they beat the 49ers, it wasn't on the back of Lamar Jackson. It was on the back of the defense that got 4 interceptions off of Brock Purdy, right? And so that's the thing, is if you couple the defense not getting stops and Lamar Jackson led offense stumbling out of the gate, they're going to run into a lot of issues. And so that's the biggest matchup, in my opinion, this weekend, is the Chiefs have a better defense than usual. What can they do to the Ravens offense? The Chiefs offense isn't as good as usual going against a really good Ravens defense. So how do those two kind of things pair with each other? And I think the biggest news in the 49ers game is the fact that Deebo Samuel could be out, because he creates a lot of spacing. He's a lot of design that goes into the Kyle Shanahan offense. And I was texting my buddy, I was like, you have a chance if Deebo doesn't play, and the code has to be, how do we crack Kyle Shanahan? It's not about cracking Brock Purdy. It's cracking what are Kyle Shanahan's intentions with Deebo Samuel being out? How is he trying to create space? And I think it would have to do a lot with Christian McCaffrey. So you shut down Christian McCaffrey, and the Lions have a chance. So I think both of these games are actually going to end up being really interesting this week. I think we have a good Final Four of teams of well-led, well-disciplined, hard. I just think these are going to be good football games.
Chief Brody says Lions over better than Cowboys. I mean, they are right now. I wish I would have jumped.
I mean, if the
I should have
Cowboys
just ditched the Cowboys last year and gone with.
I think you can make an honest statement that the Cowboys have more talent on their roster, and if they swapped coaches and had Dan Campbell, they could potentially be in this same situation right now.
Yeah, they need what Dan Campbell brings. Just matter of fact toughness.
Right.
That's
discipline.
That's what toughness and discipline.
Nothing is given; it all has to be earned. But Jerry Jones just gives everything to his players, and all that stuff.
TD4ND says the show is biased for the Cowboys. I mean, don't know, for the Cowboys. We're very anti-Cowboy right now. TD4ND also wants to know any news on when Olivia Miles will be back. I know she wants to be back. Here's the thing with Olivia Miles that I think she has to kind of start weighing. That I'm sure she hasn't been cleared to return. That's the biggest thing. So she, that obstacle has to be cleared first. From what I understand, she has not been cleared to return. But then you have 12 games remaining in the regular season, I believe it is, as of right now. And then you've got, you would have ACC tournament, NCAA tournament after that. So that'll be, if she's cleared to play, what she has to weigh then is it worth a year of eligibility for whatever X amount of games is remaining in the end? Or do you just, not risk anything and just say, hey, medical red shirt this year and roll it into next year when you would have just about everybody coming back next year? A couple decisions on, who might stay, who might go, and all that kind of stuff. But as of right now, no more progress. So, Jesse, every year, the website Awful Announcing does a fan survey on their favorite NFL announcing teams, like the guys who call the NFL games. So there are 17 crews in total. I'm not going to go through all 17. The Fox crew of Chris Myers and Robert Smith came in 17th, though. Here is a quick, I think I've got the top 9 here. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman voted number 1 by fans. Iron Eagle Charles Davis voted number 2. Kevin Harlan and Trent Green, 3rd. Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olson, the number 1 Fox team, was voted 4th. Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth from NBC voted 5th. Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, CBS's number 1 crew, voted 6th in this fan survey. Joe Davis and Daryl Moose Johnston from Fox are number 7. Kevin Kugler and the Sanchez, Mark Sanchez, voted 8th. And then Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit, the Amazon broadcast crew, voted number 9th. This is according to a fan vote, the website Awful Announcing. So, Jesse, why do you think Jim Nantz and Tony Romo have fallen so far? They were number 1 for 3 years in a row. Then they fell off a little bit last year. Now they're all the way down to number 6 this year. Why do you think they've fallen off in such dramatic time in terms of popularity with the fans?
I think the Romo hype is worn off and taken its course on a lot of people. I think when they first started, everyone loved and appreciated Romo, but I think it's fallen off and people are quite literally kind of getting annoyed of him. I have friends tell me that they will mute the game when Tony Romo is doing the game because they just don't want to hear all of it. And then I had a friend or a coworker, and she's a big Buffalo Bills fan, and she just kept finding it cringy that he always finds a way to make comments about the Taylor Swift situation when doing Chiefs games. And so I just think,
but doesn't everyone, don't all the announcers find some way to make, I mean, they keep showing Taylor Swift. What are the announcers supposed to do? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And so I don't personally agree. I don't find anything wrong with Tony Romo. I just think that's what would explain it, is that it's just worn off on a lot of people. And as what used to be new and exciting is just now kind of common and annoying. And I think that's kind of led to their downfall. And, it's funny that that Iron Eagle is on the list up so highly, because I was like, Iron Eagle, oh yeah, I like him and Blackledge. And I was like, oh wait, that's Noah Eagle that does the games with Blackledge. And I like them a lot. I think that Eagle and Blackledge are really quality. And I think that Eagle and what's his name? Charles Davis. Charles Davis, also very quality. I very much enjoy listening to them, and every time I listen to them, I'm like, oh, these are the guys who do the NFL. They do the PlayStation games and stuff. Like they do the commentary on that kind of stuff, and I think that they're chosen for a reason, right? Like I just enjoy listening to them.
Yeah, to me, it's shocking that one of basically what's considered the 5 top broadcast crews, like, finds itself, Nantz and Romo. Because, like, when Romo came in, again, the fans voted him number 6 this year. They're the number one CBS crew. Two other CBS crews, the Iron Eagle Charles Davis and the Kevin Harlan Trent Green, both came in well ahead of Nance and Romo. And like when Romo burst on the scene, when he replaced Phil Simms in the booth, he was kind of seen as sort of revitalizing Jim Nance. And it was obviously much different. What's that? Gosh, it's already been like what, six years ago, something like that happened. But again, like he revived to me though, and I want after this came out today on NFL Network, I actually watched a little bit of that. They were re-showing the Bills Chiefs game from the other day. It's funny you brought that one up. I mean, Romo, he still has some good points and he explains things well. He doesn't come across though as the guy who is doing deep preparation on a lot of these games. And I don't know if maybe that's what it's missing or just the fact like he appears to kind of want to wing it a lot,
Well,
and,
it seems like he's trusting his knowledge
right,
that can get him through a lot of things.
Right. So I don't know if that's it or if it's just the fact that kind of like you said that we've kind of reached Romo fatigue, I think. And just the fact that you can't stay popular forever because the whole thing has really swung, because like Buck and Aikman used to be fairly criticized, but they're sitting there at number one in this thing. And maybe it's because Buck's not doing baseball anymore. I don't know. I think it's funny. What do you think about Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit being so low, all the way down at number 9 on this?
I'm going to be unapologetic about this. I think it's funny. I am not a big fan of Kirk Herbstreit at the NFL level. I tolerate him in the college level. I think he's good at his job. I'm just not a personal fan. Like I don't love Kirk Herbstreit games, and I think it's.
I mean, a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't.
I think it's a matter of opinion. I don't dislike him, but I don't like. I'm not excited to listen to a game like I would be if it was Noah Eagle and Blackledge. I enjoyed that experience more than I enjoy the Herbstreit experience. And then when you combine Al Michaels being the old get off my lawn kind of grandpa the last couple seasons, I just don't think that, or sorry, I'm not surprised that the combination isn't polling or doing well. And then, you combine that with they're on a novelty kind of streaming service of Amazon. Not everyone has Amazon. And so, you're watching on limited capacity. And I think that also contributes to it as well.
I've told you before that like it's one of the more dull broadcasts, I feel like. And for a standalone broadcast every week, I think that you need a little bit, Al Michaels is arguably the best TV play-by-play guy ever, but that's not what that broadcast is right now. And I feel like when I watch Herbstreit in a Thursday NFL game compared to a Saturday night primetime game, it's two different Kirk Herbstreits. There's a lot more enthusiasm, it seems like, for a Saturday game. There's obviously a different level of atmosphere for a Saturday, big time atmosphere college football game and that kind. But it feels like he's sort of like bringing his level down to sort of match Al Michaels because Al Michaels has been there. So, like he's not, not that he's not trying to show him up, but just that he's trying to match that level there. Like that Thursday night booth needs some punching up. Like I would be going after Jason Kelce, I think, like if I were them, as he steps, like off the field and into retirement. That like the Eagle booth that you brought up, like the Noah Eagle Todd Blackledge, that could very easily be a standalone, like this, that level Thursday night type broadcast booth. I don't know if NBC would let them, since they're already working for NBC and all that kind of stuff, but that would be something at least worth looking at because, they got to do that one NFL playoff game. That was a really good booth. I was impressed with what they were able to do, with only getting the one NFL game this season.
Yeah, I agree.
So Fowler Herbstreit, they're basically college football's number one booth. Is that your favorite booth? Like what is your favorite college football booth?
I think I already said it. I like the Noah Eagle and Blackledge game. They did a Notre Dame game at some point. It was a road game. I can't remember which one it was. I'm trying to I I like Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt more than I like Herb Street and Fowler. I used to like the Notre Dame booth better than that when
When Mike Tirico was still
when
around.
Tirico was still around. I like it's I still think that Herb Street and them are better than the Jason Garrett booth. Don't get me wrong. I'm trying to think of, and then what's the big CBS crew? Nance and not Nance. It's Musgrave and someone else, right?
Gary Danielson and why is his name slipping me right now? I can see his face and I can hear his voice, but I can't think of his name. The one I like is basically the number 2 ESPN booth is Sean McDonough and Greg McElroy. And that,
yeah, I like that one more than I like the first stringers as well.
Yeah. Josh says he didn't care for Noah Eagle. I feel like Noah Eagle, especially for as young as he is Brad Nessler. Thank you, Michael Hahn. Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson. I think they're solid.
I would still take them over Herb Street and Fowler.
Yeah, Fowler just doesn't have that. Look, like
it feels like he's talking to talk at some points.
And it's he doesn't have that this is a big time game feel to his voice. That's what it comes down to me. Like Sean McDonough has called World Series. He's called a lot of big games in his career, and he's been around for a long time. He always gets basically, the last few years, he's got that number 2 college football playoff semifinal. Fowler and Herb Street get one. McDonough has got the other. And I think McDonough's been around. It's a shame that, from Kevin Harlan's perspective, he's done great where he's at, but because of his enthusiasm level and excitement level, to me, he's built for college football and would be, again, like a great standalone college football type game guy. But he's doing very well at CBS between the NFL and NBA, and he gets to call Super Bowls on the radio for Westwood One and all that kind of stuff. But, again, like in this awful announcing fan survey, Harlan and Eagle, were both voted ahead of Nance and Romo. So it's very, very interesting just what fans prefer. And they did this whole voting thing. So I don't know. But I agree. Like Fowler, Herb Street would not be my number 1. I don't have as much a problem with Fowler as the college football analyst, I think, as you do. I think he's, I think he does a good enough job. But like from the NFL side, I don't think that is working the way I think that they thought it would. All right. Well, that is going to do it for tonight. Appreciate you being here. We will, of course, be back tomorrow. So we look forward to that. We will talk to you then. Hit that like button before you leave tonight. And of course, subscribe, rate, and review. And we will talk to you later on IB Nation Sports Talk.